Welcome to Bridges. I'm Monica Schmelter. I'm glad that you could join us today. My guest in this segment is Joe Amaral, and we're going to talk about Story in the Stars. Joe, it's so good to have you here today.
Well, thanks for having me here, and thanks for saying my name correctly.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're one of the few.
That's good.
Nice.
So I did well on that.
Yeah.
I am excited about this project, Story in the
good.
Stars. I know that for a lot of people, when you start talking about the stars and astronomy, people make that connection, you know, to the zodiac, and they think that it's astrology.
Yeah.
Let's speak to that, if you would, first.
Yeah, sure. It freaks people out. And let me just say that you really got to know that God has given you this message and called you to do it. Because when you come into a church and your PowerPoint's first slide is Sagittarius or, you know,
exactly.
Yeah, Gemini or something, people just, they freak right out.
Yes.
And so we address it right in the beginning. You know, the word for zodiac is a Greek word from the word zodiakos, and it simply means something that moves in a circle. So when John says, I looked up into the sky, and we're going to get to this, and he said, I saw a great sign. And you have to wonder, well, what is it, a spiritual sign? Is it a physical sign? What is it? He says, I looked and I saw a zodiakos. I saw a sign in the sky. He's referring to an actual constellation. Now, the way this whole thing started was 2 years ago, I woke up from a very disturbing dream, and I'm sure you've had dreams where you wake up and you say, man, was that God or the tamales from last night? Or I don't know what's going on. And I woke up and I told my wife the dream, and she said, don't tell anybody, Joe. That's really, really different. Because in the dream, I was outside looking up, and I saw an image of a woman hovering in the heavens. And beside her was this multi-headed dragon. See, you're having the same reaction my wife did.
Yeah, I would think that's pepperoni, tamales, just a bad night.
Something.
Yeah,
and I woke up and I'm like, what in the world was that? And then, you know, that inner small voice of the Lord, check the constellations. I said, the constellations? God, that's like from the devil. I mean, what do you mean check the constellations? But I knew the voice. That's the voice that said, you're done pastoring, get into itinerant ministry. That's the voice that said, go to Israel, write a book, do this. I knew the voice.
So you knew it was the voice of the Lord saying to check out the constellations, and yet you're going through that battle that I think anybody would.
Exactly.
You know, because I know before I became saved, I read horoscopes, and I thought it was like a cool thing, and then I became a Christian. It was like, no, that's of the devil. So you're thinking constellations, how could God be telling me this?
How can this be God? Now, you were right, the zodiacs are of the devil, not the constellations, but the astrology and horoscope part of it. And so that's all I knew as a Christian.
Sure.
This is 2 years ago. I've been saved a long time.
Wow.
You know, and so I went to the Bible. I'm trying to find anything to do with stars, and I do a search on BibleGateway.com, and I get to Luke 21:24, and Jesus says there will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars. And then he says again in Matthew 24, look to the heavens, look to the clouds for the sign of the Son of Man, the word zodiakos. And I'm like, Jesus is talking about zodiacs? What in the world is this? But the woman and the dragon, I couldn't get it out of my head, and I had to find it. And I'm looking, and I get to Revelation chapter 12. And John said, here he was on the Isle of Patmos. Now, the viewers need to remember, on the Isle of Patmos, it's a flat island, and he's looking out at the ocean. So as he's looking out, the sky is meeting the ocean. That's all he sees. And when it gets dark, when it gets nighttime, in Patmos 2,000 years ago, there's no light pollution. The stars would be popping out of the sky. He says, I looked and I saw a great beast rise out of the sea. What's he seeing? He's seeing an actual zodiac, a constellation, rise out of the sea as the night sky continues. And then he says, I looked up, and there I saw a woman, and I almost had a heart attack. Okay, and she was clothed in the sun. That means at one point in time, the sun was passing through the constellation of this image, and the moon was at her feet. And a crown of 12 stars was over her head. But then another sign appeared, a great dragon with 7 heads. And you know the story that he wanted to attack and devour the baby. And then John says that he flung his tail and a third of the stars fell from the heaven. And I'm like, John, I thought I had a crazy dream. What was he seeing? And I said, I wonder what he was seeing on that day. So I got an astronomy program. I punched in Isle of Patmos. I said, show me the sky. And in the night sky, Virgo appears in the heavens, the woman that he saw. And I said, okay, run for me a sequence. Show me when the sun passes through Virgo. And there was a day. Show me the day where the moon comes under the feet of Virgo. When did they line up? And everything John saw in the book of Revelation happened on an actual day in history. And then that's when it hit me. I said, God, John's not seeing just some, spiritual woman in the sky who's the church or who's Israel. He's seeing the constellation of Virgo.
That's interesting, because I've read that story, that passage in Revelation, and it's troubled me. I don't know what it means, but I've always thought it was a spiritual vision. But you're saying really that in the constellations, he really looked and he saw this was a sign that God was giving.
Yeah, well, it made sense because he goes, I looked and I saw a sign. And then I saw another sign. And today,
he calls it a sign.
You grab any constellational chart, there's Virgo and there's Hydra. There's the seven-headed dragon beside it. It's just, that's the way it is.
So if somebody went out and got this story in the stars, is that kind of what you break down and explain to us? Because, a lot of people are intrigued, but and yet we don't understand the fullness of what you're saying.
Yeah, no, Story in the Stars, the documentary, we animate all of this. We show you what the heavens were like the day that John was writing the book of Revelation. And I think it's really going to encourage people to see the God, the creator of the universe. The Bible says, for God so loved the world that he gave us his son.
Amen.
I take it a step further. For God so loved us that he created the universe to write the message of salvation, in the stars. In the book of Job, Job was having this conversation with God, and God says to him, can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Can you cause the constellations to move in their seasons? God takes ownership of the constellations, Yes. And I know I could talk for another half hour, but this is really important. Psalm says that the heavens declare the glory of God. And we always take that as a beautiful sunset or a nice clear night. But it's got to be more than that, because why did God create 300 billion stars? Is it just aesthetic? Is there something more to it? In Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3, it says that the sun, S-O-N, the sun is the glory of God in its exact representation. So when the heavens are declaring the glory of God, they're declaring the Son of God.
Amen. The
constellations, all those symbols in the sky, God put them there. So no matter where you live, all you have to do is look up 12 signs, 12 months. Each month, a different area of the life of the Messiah is personified. That's how God tells the message of salvation. It's beautiful and powerful.
And you call that Story in the Stars.
That's right.
And people can go out and get this and really see God's message of salvation in creation. Yeah,
I mean, the best place to get it is go to the website, storyinthestars.com. You can get a downloadable version, high definition, and start watching it. And it's also an excellent tool to give to people who are into astrology, who are into horoscopes. And they'll think it's a movie about horoscopes for them, but in the end, they're going to realize it's pointing to him, the bright morning star.
And I realize as you say that about horoscopes, that's really the counterfeit of what God wanted to say to us in the Story in the Stars. And so we've kind of backed off from that and yet didn't understand that God's got this story in the stars for us to declare his salvation message and to understand more fully. I want to thank you for coming today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been good to have you. We want you to stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment.
In Genesis 1:14 it says, God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years. So it's clear then that God had intent, he had purpose behind creation. But you ever pause to wonder what exactly God meant when he gave the stars their purpose? We can see even in Job, it says this, can you bind the cluster of the Pleiades, or loosen the belt of Orion? Can you bring out the constellations in their seasons, or can you guide the great bear with its cubs? Right from the beginning, we see it was God who named them and gave them purpose. Why put constellations there in the first place? Look at what Psalm 19 verses 1 through 4 have to say, and this is where it really gets exciting. It says that the heavens declare the what? The glory of God. The stars proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech, and night after night they reveal knowledge.
If there is this awareness of reading the sky this way, right? That is so ancient that gets passed on. Then we can't assume that it got lost once Christianity or the community of Christians emerged.
The Bible doesn't just hint, it tells us that the glory of God is not a thing, it's a person. I want you to consider what it says here in Hebrews 1 and 3. The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of His being. Can it be any more clear? The heavens declare the Son of God. The heavens declare Jesus. When you look up into the night sky, you're not just seeing random patterns.
You can purchase a copy of today's show for $15. Call us at 615-754-0039 or send a check to the address on the screen. Please mention the program number on the screen.
Join the Bridges community on Facebook. Visit Facebook and search for Bridges with Monica. We would love to connect with you.
Welcome back to Bridges. I'm Rachel Markin, filling in for Monica Schmelter, and we're continuing on with our exciting day of talking about Christian movies. And I have with me right now the executive producer of The Identical. Please welcome to the show, Yochanan Marcellino.
Pleasure to be here, Rachel.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're here today.
This is going to be great.
So can you go ahead and tell me a little bit about what The Identical was about?
Sure. The Identical is a period piece. It covers from the Great Depression in the 1930s through the 1970s. It's about two identical twin brothers that were born under extreme conditions, very, very, very poor, no jobs, no food, and the parents didn't know they were having twins. And they were struggling, trying to figure out how to go down the road with one child, and all of a sudden they have two. They're overwhelmed. Pastor comes through town who's an evangelist, and they find out that he's got a wife that has miscarried again. She won't be able to have children. The father, starts praying about, his twin sons.
Okay.
He talks to his wife, and they end up giving away one of their babies. It's unbelievable. Wow. And it goes on from there, and these two young men both have incredible music talent. One goes on to be this iconic Elvis-esque type of musical icon. The other becomes a pastor's kid and wants to go into the ministry to follow his father's foot, but he's got this gift. And anyways, the two brothers' lives unknowingly intersect in the most amazing way, and the divine providence of God is working all throughout the affairs of men in this film.
And I had a chance to watch The Identical at a screening, and it really caught my eye because it's a unique story. And one of the first things I thought when I watched it is the lead actor looks like Elvis Presley.
That's an amazing story. I'll just give you a quick one. His name is Blake Rain,
okay.
and we were looking for a real period piece, iconic looking guy. Never imagined that we'd find a guy that looked like Elvis. But this friend of ours right here in Nashville said, he has a Diamond Sound Studios here in Nashville. He said to my son and I've got the guy you're looking for right now. He's rehearsing in my studio, getting ready for the road. I said, what? And so, he put this meeting together. We came over there. I take a look at this guy. I listen to him sing, and I go, I'm thinking, Elvis is still here. It was unbelievable.
Right, because a lot of people think that Elvis is still alive.
Yeah, and or his offspring, and but the cool thing about it was this was because we were music people, first. I've spent 40 years in the industry, and the quality of the music in this film, all original, was going to have to be authentic to the period. So I wanted to first cast somebody in that lead role that was a music guy, and so now I felt like I had that element. I said, do you act? And he said, I don't, but I want to, and I've always
Really?
wanted to. I've just never had the opportunity.
I would never have thought that he didn't act. when
Yeah,
I saw it.
and but I mean, you know, he's a stage performer, you know, so you know, all of a sudden, you know, we put him in acting school and did that for about 9-10 months, and the guy came out ready to rock and roll. It was unbelievable what he did.
Yeah, that is amazing. And it's interesting because Elvis Presley did have a twin brother, right? Is the script based off of Elvis's life, of what if his brother had survived?
It's sort of an alternate universe, you know. It's not about Elvis, and it's not, you know, about his family, and this is a, you know, it's a film that is fictional, you know, but you can't get around the fact of what this guy looks like, and there were interesting things, like Elvis did have a twin brother that most people don't know that was born. He was stillborn, and but anyways, yeah, it just sort of gelled and came together, and when he started acting with big name people like Ray Liotta and Ashley Judd, and you name it, he delivered.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a little intimidating to never have acted before and act with people like that.
Yeah.
So that was also interesting about the film, is that you did have what I would call real world stars. These are people who have been in things that aren't necessarily Christian. Was that something you wanted to do, was to bring in real world stars into the movie?
Yeah, you know, our goal really with the Identical was to elevate the quality of a film to the highest level of Hollywood. In other words, you know, bring something with a faith-filled message that had the cinematography, that had the acting,
Amen.
all of the things at a very high level of quality and excellence. And that was our goal from the beginning. We didn't know who we were going to attract and how that would work, but we stepped out and put that quality into a great screenplay, which it starts with a great story, and we surrounded that with some great elements, and all of a sudden, you know, people like Ray and Ashley and Seth Green and Joe Penta, they just started filing in, saying this is an incredible story that we want to be part of.
That's amazing. Were you ever concerned that people might say, oh, you've put people in this movie who aren't real Christians?
No, that never bothered me. I know that there's people out there that struggle with those kinds of things. But, you know something, Rachel, you know, salvation is a process. We're all on a journey. Look at your own life. I'll look at my life.
Amen.
You can look at everybody else's life. And you know, I wanted something that would affect all people that were around us. And I wanted the authenticity. And so you take a person like Ray Liotta, he had never read the Bible before.
Wow.
All of a sudden, the guy's reading the Bible saying, man, this is real. This
Praise
is
God.
unbelievable. Yochanan. I mean,
amazing.
it's changing my life, you know, and so you start, you know, in other words, that's what it's all about, you know.
It is.
Getting real with people. Joe Pantoliano said, what I love about this film, Yochanan, is it's where people are really living in their everyday life. And that's what we set out to do. We wanted to touch people where they're really at.
I agree with you, and I think that something that we read in the Bible about Jesus' life is that he came to redeem what was meant for harm. And I believe, as people that work in the media, that we can redeem songs, we can redeem movies, we can redeem people, and what might be meant for not good can be meant for good, and I think that's a great point. So.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you mentioned that your son worked on this movie. Tell me about how it's a 3-generation family project.
Well, it sort of started with my father, Jerry Marcellino. We've been producing records together for many, many, many years. And but in the 70s, he was a huge Motown producer. Produced Michael Jackson's first #1 record, Rockin' Robin, in 1972. But he produced, Diana Ross, the Supremes, the Commodores, Four Tops, you name it. He was there. Smokey Robinson and Lionel Richie and everybody else. Bobby Darin was part of that, and Frankie Valli. So, I grew up in it, you know, so I was in the studio in high school with some of the greatest, you know, singers and artists in the world, and kind of got the bug early, went into the industry at 18 years old.
Wow.
And so really, by the time I had kids, they were already exposed to that kind of side of me, and so, yeah, so my son Dustin directed the film. My son Jordan was a co-producer. My father was a co-producer, Jerry Marcellino, and we also wrote the majority of the music in the film, and we produced all of the music in the film. So it's based on the authenticity of the period that we lived out in our own lives.
It's amazing. Was this a dream that you all had for many years to make a feature-length film?
You know, it was really a dream that I was wanting to do to encourage my son, who was a director, and you know, he had done all you could do with you know, being nominated in Christian videos and this and that and the other, but he had a desire to, you know, direct films, you know, major motion pictures, and so it was really a dream to kind of come together and encourage that gifting that he had, but at the same time, we're all kind of in this thing, you know, so we all kind of came together, and then I did something that I'll let your audience know right now, that in the film, I had my wife, my daughter, 2 granddaughters at the time, and my grandmother, all in the train scene.
Really?
So I could say that 3 generations of Marcellinos made the film, but 5 generations actually showed up in the film.
That's wonderful. And the movie has amazing music. Tell me about your work with that.
Well, you know, we had, you know, I come from a rock and roll and R&B background, so in the period we have rock and roll, we have R&B, pop music, we have some, you know, the period takes place in Nashville in the, you know, the 50s and 60s, and so bluegrass played a role in this, and we were able to write for the scenes that we had and produce to the periods that we had.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible experience to go through with your family. And people go, how do you work with your family, man? That's crazy. You know, I mean, don't you guys have problems? No.
It seemed to work very well.
We love to work
for you
together,
all.
you know?
Yeah.
It's a blast.
And absolutely, we only have a couple seconds left, but
Sure.
I know that the movie has some important biblical viewpoints in it.
Yes.
Can you tell me about those?
Yes, yeah. You know, I'm just going to read a few off here. It's a movie that includes marriage between a man and a woman in this film, moral purity before marriage, the preciousness of childbearing, children respecting their parents in this film, desire for children in an abortion nation.
Yes.
Unfortunately, faithfulness in ministry for 40 years. Our character, Reese Wade, the pastor, 40 years in ministry. It's not, you know, by today's standards, people don't really honor and respect people like they should for spending years of their life in any vocation. In this case, it was ministry. Exalting marital love. There's a struggle against sin. The father basically tries to control the direction of his son's life. He wants him to go into the ministry, and you find out that that's great, but deep in the kid's heart, he wants to do music. And so he has to repent to his son, and we see that as a beautiful thing. A father and a pastor who is a sinner, not a charlatan, but a sinner that repents to his son. I mean, it's
There's so many good points.
Oh yeah,
in the
we have a
movie.
pro-Israel stand in this film, Rachel.
That's wonderful.
For today, and so, anyways, that's just a few of them.
Yeah, well, I definitely recommend that everyone go check it out. And I want to thank you for being here with us today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, we'd like for you to check out a trailer of The Identical Now.
You sure your daddy's okay with this? Oh, yeah, man, I take his car all the time.
Hey! You put me back here! In your song, Mr. Music Man.
Where do preacher's kid learn to dance the way that you do?
Something just happens to me when I hear music.
In my feet. Dance, dance, dance.
Whatever it is, it's a good thing round rage.
Dance, dance, dance.
Sing songs, write songs, that's all I want to do.
Boogie, boogie, rock and roll. Get out of here!
A honky-tonk, you're going into the ministry.
Your father tells me you got a mind to follow in his footsteps.
Mama, I don't hear this call Daddy wants me to hear.
It's a man's job, learning to stand in his truth.
Drexel Hemsley. Ryan cannot hear us.
It's in every storefront in town.
Who is this?
Anybody ever tell you you look just like Drexel Hemsley?
Are you guys related or something?
No, not related.
Ryan, you're about as close to the real thing as I've ever seen.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I think this boy's a star.
I signed Ryan Wade, the identical.
Just want to work some of my songs.
Nobody wants to hear your song. You're a pretender, buddy. You are nothing.
It's time to tell him the truth. He has a right to know who he is.
I'm mighty proud of you, son.
The call you heard was for your life, not mine.
You're breaking my heart, boy.
You looking for something, aren't you?
It's not about the money. I'm tired of being somebody I'm not.
I was alone. I was alone. Made me believe.
Why are there always police involved with you and me?
You called the cops on me?
There's something about you.
Do you have a ministry or business? You can contact Nashville's WHTN for studio and programming rates. Visit ctntv.org/studio or call 615-754-0039 for more details.
The blood of Christ is the only cure. It gets down to the root of every single thing that ails us. There's not an addiction, there's not a generational curse, there's not any root of sin, there's nothing that the blood of Jesus cannot cleanse.
Visit monicaschmelter.com to schedule Monica to speak at your event.
Prayer changes things. If you need prayer, write to the address on the screen. Call 615-754-0039 or email prayer@ctntv.org.
Log on to www.ctntv.org, where you can make a prayer request, view our program guide, see who's on Bridges, or even watch one of Monica's latest teachings. Log on to www.ctntv.org.
For more information on a guest, visit our website, ctntv.org.